Hey everyone, talking about fragrances that to me smell like a realistic green garden. There are so many green fragrances out there to varying degrees of evocative, realistic, naturey vibes, but these ones for me were all ones where smelling it was like, wow, really, really that garden vibe coming through. So, no particular order, just gonna jump in. First, L'Ombre dans l'eau by Diptyque. So, yep, freshly cut garden. The rose in this really smells like a fresh, real rose too in a garden, not like a lot of rose accords, where even sometimes when they're more fresh and sweet, it doesn't necessarily really smell like that real rose in a garden type of vibe. There's also some fruitiness and then something a little bit saltier that keeps it from going too sweet either. And it's also not too sharp and bitter herbal. So, yeah, very, very wearable and nice smelling. Next, Green Spell by Eris. This is like if you put this to my nose and I close my eyes or whatever, and someone told me I was smelling fresh plant stems from a garden, honestly, I would believe it. One of probably the most realistic green fragrances that I've ever smelled, at least just, yeah, when I smell it and close my eyes, it's like, it reminds me of being a kid and playing in the park or like doing a school gardening project. And clearly I need to get in nature garden more as an adult, but yeah, very nostalgic in that sense for me at least, but not in smelling dated whatsoever, just more like, yeah, like fresh outdoors green garden, really fresh and invigorating, kind of more tart and earthy by the dry down, but not really in like a sour patchouli type of way, more laid back, and there's like almost a little bit of kind of sweet freshness too. Yeah, really nicely done. Next, Coven by Andrea Maack. This is unique yet wearable and like nostalgic yet modern at the same time. Really just has that soil accord in the garden, totally comes through, very recognizable, but it doesn't smell dirty in like a gross way like that might sound of soil or dirt note or whatever. Just really authentically green and very, very much on the specifically earthy side, but again, not so much in like a pungent way to me, just like that realistic soil in a garden. And yeah, love it. Next, Posh on the Green by Atkinsons. So this is like sharp, fresh garden green with kind of like a slight balsamic tomato leaf vibe almost. There's petitgreen and geranium that kind of give it this like sharp freshness. Coriander and galbanum that give it this bitter green. And then the vetiver and cedar are done kind of a slightly earthy way here, so you just really get like that full outdoors experience. And if you like aromatic, sharp, realistic green scents, that one's very much more budget friendly than a lot of scents. Although I would say actually most of the ones on this list are more on the affordable end as far as mostly niche on the list goes. Next up, Aube Pashmina by Pierre Guillaume. Nice fresh green garden scent, very like vegetal aromatic green with this like sharp freshness from the black currant. Normally a note that I don't like, but I think it really works here. It gets, I don't know if there's galbanum or patchouli in here, but something kind of between those two types of sort of sharp, dark green. And the nuances of the tomato leaf, I think, play around with contributing to that. Next up, Wild Achillea. So this, I believe, used to be called Nettle and Wild Achillea, released in like 2019. Then they remarketed it under a limited edition series just called Wild Achillea. This smells to me like being on a hike in, yeah, gardeny nature type of vibes. There's like some tart, bright bergamot that gives it this sort of sunny freshness, but then there's this very like aromatic, green, herbal, and rootsy plant type of qualities as well. And I don't think there's tomato leaf in this, but I think this is one that people who like that type of vibe would, yeah, enjoy it here. Like it's not a super dry type of green. It's much more, yeah, like kind of vivid and aromatic. And yeah, next, Vert de Fleur by Tom Ford. Smells like a fresh, humid, realistic green garden that starts with like sharp yet still sort of dewy green plants. And there's like the grass and the weeds, and then flowers bloom more and more as the scent develops. But it's still fresh. It's not like, I wouldn't call this personally super floral or anything like that. Next up, Mirto de Panarea by Acqua de Parma. This is very green in like a bright and dewy, fresh way, kind of like freshly cut stems of plants. And it has like a classy and sort of elegant but yet modern vibe to it. And yeah, it's kind of different from some of the others in the Blue Mediterraneo series by Acqua de Parma. But yeah, I like the kind of like very, very wearable, bright, but still like fresh, vivid sense of the green gardenness there. Next, Synthetic Jungle by Frederic Malle. I believe it's called Synthetic Nature now or something like that. They changed the name. And to me, this smells so much like a realistic like greenhouse garden, or almost like rainforest jungle type of gardeny vibe. And there's also like blooming flowers and lots of plants, so it's kind of like green, floral, and clean and fresh. And yeah, it's almost, I've seen people describe it as being like sort of a retro vintage style, but reimagined to smell modern, and I could totally see that. But there's very much like this vivid greenness that comes through to me there. Next up, Eris de Gris by L'Artisan Parfumeur. And even though Iris is in the title, this is to me not a super irisy scent. I'm not normally a fan of iris, but I really like this one. Humid green, very like vegetal green, fresh soil, but it has this kind of calming, uplifting, slightly sweet freshness at the same time. Very like cozy gardening vibes, if that makes any sense, but yet it's also energizing at the same time. Just like kind of a green, sunny day in nature. Next, another one from the same series by L'Artisan Parfumeur, this one called Vetiver Ecarlate. This one is just, vividly realistic, green plant stems, feels like a fresh, crisp garden on like a sunny day with like a cool breeze blowing, kind of some grapefruit being peeled in the garden, and then some light spice in the air. And last, You or Someone Like You by Etat Libre d'Orange, very fresh, realistic green, also one that has some rose in it, but that's done in much more of, as in the first one in this list, very like bright and natural type of way, rather than the sort of dusty, powdery type of rose that's sometimes featured prominently, especially in niche fragrances. There's also, I think, some anise here that goes really well with the notes and doesn't get too licoricey. And to me, this smells like being in like a garden surrounded by fresh fruit trees, freshly cut grass, and then smelling the green leaves up close. And I would say most of these are pretty unisex on this list as well. I'll link in the description. I created like a collection on my fragrance site of decanted samples of these ones, and if I find new ones that I think are a good fit for this category after recording this, I'll add them in that link too. But I only add stuff when I really feel like it's a good fit and that there's enough stuff that goes with it, so I don't just add things just to be like, oh, maybe someone will buy a sample of that if I add it in the collection or whatever. So yep, I'll link that, and you can also get them anywhere else, I'm sure. But if you're looking to smell kind of like realistic green garden vibes, I do recommend checking out any on this list.